welcome back to Chat Shit. It is grand final week. We've just watched the Brownlow medal, and over the weekend we had two cracking prelims, so we're going to go through it all. We'll start off with a little chat about the Brownlow that just happened, then we'll break down the prelims we saw over the weekend, and then a nice preview for the grand final, some predictions. We're so excited for it. Looks like it'll be an absolute cracker.
Yeah.
Starting off, we've just seen Matt Rowell come in as the fifth favourite and win the Brownlow medal by 7 votes. 39 votes for Matt Rowell.
It's tough to know what to think of this Brownlow medal because it seems like every single year people are saying it's a farce. How can this happen? Last year was Cripps, who absolutely
45.
who smashed the record, and Rowell coming from fifth favourite, who we think
I love Rowell.
We love him.
I love to see it, but the voting in some of the games.
And we think he wasn't even the best player in his team. Anderson didn't score very well at all for what we expected him to score. Rowell had some very low disposal games.
At the start of the year, there was a 0-goal 16 disposal game and a 0-goal 17 disposal game that both got 3 votes.
And he was getting more votes with those sorts of games than Noah Anderson, who maybe had a goal 32 or something like that. So he scored incredibly well, but it just seems like we talked about it a bit that umpires have these guys that they look at throughout the entire season. Yeah. So we talked about like Brodie Grundy only got 6 votes, but he was getting 10 coaches' votes week in, week out for a pretty significant amount of time. So I
think it's very, very clear. The umpires are training with each other. Whoever knows how many times a week. They're probably all best mates because they work together and they love their job. They're clearly talking about the players that they rate, the players that go about it the right way. They're the most impressive this year. So this general consensus is clearly there, and they're just looking for any reason to give those players that they rate the most votes. And that was Cripps last year. It's Rowell this year. He didn't need to do much to get 3 votes this year. But can everyone just, have a glass of wine for Nick Dacos? It's not his first, second place. Might not be his last. We've seen it with Bontempelli. Maybe Dacos is the next one to just be robbed of Brownlow medals year after year.
Yeah, we're really happy with the Rowell Brownlow medal. We just didn't expect it to exactly happen like this. And the fact that he won so much, so convincingly with 2 rounds to go was very surprising to us. And it looked like it was very surprising to him that he won as well. Yeah. Congratulations. Murphy Reid won the Rising Star, which was pretty big as well. But let's jump straight into reviewing the prelim final weekend.
Absolutely pissing down here at the turn. Marcus has kicked up. Jesus! Usain Bolt wouldn't get him now.
The legend becomes immortal.
Starting at the G, Geelong versus Hawthorn. First, I'll mention Hawthorn got a home prelim, basically, so how good is that?
Yeah.
But packing out, I think it was 97,000 at the G. Patrick Dangerfield was the key to taking this Geelong team to the next level in finals. Not that they even really needed it. They were already, I reckon, the best team and the most likely. But he's taken them to the next level because he's been unleashed. We've seen throughout the year, he's had very minimised time on ground, usually often about 60 to 65% time on ground.
Lucky in the third quarter.
Yeah, if games are sort of done early, Chris Scott's quick to sub him off and be really smart because he knows how impactful Patrick Dangerfield can still be at 35 years old, which is that he can be pretty much unstoppable bursting out of clearance as soon as he gets his hand on the footy. It's similar to Matt Rowell in how difficult he is to tackle and how quick he is out of the stoppage. And then you send him up forward and, he's that Isaac Heaney type up forward that can leap in the air and take big clunks and then on the ground will just row for the ball and break through a pack and snap a goal. So he's going to play midfield and forward time. He's going to do it again in the grand final, and he's going to play pretty much, a full set of time on the field like he did this week, and we can see that he's the key.
It's gone to that point with Geelong where people say, they got lucky with the lack of injuries that they had. They're able to field their best 22. Obviously, Tom Stewart's not going to play in the grand final, but it's not. I feel like it's not even luck anymore because it seems like year in, year out, they do the exact same thing. They get to the end, whether they're in the top 4 or not in the top 4, but they have very few injuries. They manage their players so well. They know exactly the limitations of their players. Maybe a different team would still try and play Dangerfield through the midfield for a lot of the year, and maybe they would risk him to injury. But they played him in the forward line, and like you said, they've unleashed him now, and this is exactly what he can do. I mean, onto the Hawthorn side, they look great early with Mitch Lewis and the Hawthorn forward line getting the better of the Geelong defence, especially when the ball hit the ground. I mean, Mitch Lewis looked back to his best and probably had his best game in the last few years after fighting through injury for so long. But they couldn't match the explosiveness of Dangerfield and the running power of Geelong as the game went on. Hawthorn got the better of Adelaide because sort of you could say their second-tier role players had huge games like Ward and Warple who were exposed against Geelong, and you can see exactly why Hawthorn are targeting that extra star midfielder. to say probably complete this team when Will Day comes back. But Geelong got away from Hawthorn in the third quarter, kicking 7 goals 4. And it was the small forwards of the Geelong that the Hawks defence couldn't really compete with. We know the Hawks defence go in really tall, and it's worked really well throughout the season. We've commended their defence for quite some time. But they're two smaller defenders. Obviously, they have Hardwick, but then Amon and Impey aren't the greatest small defensive defenders. And I think that's potentially something they look at in the off-season because it has felt like smaller forwards have got the better of them. We saw it in the GWS game that we were at as well. But looking at the entire year, Hawthorn won 2 finals and look like they just go from strength to strength after winning the 1 final last year. And they'll go into the next season as one of the premiership favourites.
Yeah, if they can pick up Zach Merritt, just specifically Zach Merritt, they'll be up with the top 3 or 4 premiership favourites.
100% into the coaches' votes.
Yeah. 5 votes, I think, was clearly Patrick Dangerfield.
Yeah.
And I might surprise you with my 4 votes. I've gone Brian Myers. We're going to race through this, but just quickly. A goal 27 at 92% with 4 goal assists. So 5 inside 50s, almost all of which led to a goal.
Yeah.
So
quite scary.
What that guy does with the ball is wizardry in the forward half. We see so many people panic, and you can't blame a guy for just sending it long into the forward pocket. But Myers never just sends it long. He always finds the best option.
I wouldn't be surprised if Brisbane maybe pay a little bit of attention to him in the grand final.
Yeah, and then 3 votes for me was Bailey Smith. Yeah. Awesome. 2 votes Tom Atkins, and 1 vote Dylan Moore. Just Tom Atkins, who got the better of Jai Newcomb, who has been dominant in every final up till now.
I had Dangerfield 5, Bailey Smith I gave 4, Brian Myers I gave 3. I had Mark Blitzarves with 2. Yep. I thought he was really good in the ruck up against a much bigger body in Lloyd Meek. And I had Tom Atkins with 1 vote.
Yeah, that's back-to-back weeks you've given Blitzarves votes, I think, or back-to-back games for Geelong, which it's amazing what he's continuing to do for them, how important he is.
Let's jump into the next game.
My big call on Collingwood is that I think this may be the last final that they play for a few years. Ooh. They had the oldest team of all time this year.
Not even the top 8 next year?
No, I don't think so.
Ooh.
I think...
We'll stick around for that video.
They had the oldest team of all time this year, and I thought it was pretty incredible that they were able to make that premiership push and make that charge to compete for a premiership that they could have won. But I find it really hard to see them pushing again, having another really strong pre-season with this list. With all these aging players on their list, it's just becoming too much, and it's the lack of emerging talent. So you see these aging players sometimes with Geelong as well, but it's not as many. And Chris Scott has a really masterful way of always weaving in young players to get their minutes on the field, legs and match experience to develop them as those old players are going on. But for Collingwood, Ned Long was maybe their only young player, emerging player that took a big step up in his career this year. There's not really anyone else, and that's the downside of playing 20 guys with huge experience every week. So I think there will be a rebuild period for Collingwood starting next year. I think you're going to have a lot of guys that take a step backwards. I can't see Jamie Elliott going again for another full season as well as he did this year. I can't see Membry or McStay with his body having the same impact. Sidebottom Pendlebury, I don't know if Pendlebury will play next year. And Sidebottom, I don't think will be the same level. Like, they just have to regress at some point. And I think this is now.
Well, it's interesting with Collingwood because it almost seems like they've gone all in. They don't have a draft. Their first draft pick this year is pick 34 and then into the 50s and 60s. So they're almost staring down the barrel of what West Coast did, where they completely traded away their future to have a real crack. They've had that crack. They were first for most of the year. They didn't win.
They won a premiership a couple of years ago.
They went all in. They got Houston. They traded away their future for that. It'll be interesting. I don't know where I'm going to have Collingwood next year, but it'll be really interesting if they do have one more crack to go again. Obviously, they're a destination club and players want to play for them, so they're going to have a good pick at any free agents in the off season.
Yeah.
But they don't have many players to trade. A few people might leave. Jamie Elliott's linked to Gold Coast. Mycheck might leave because they're not offering him a long enough contract.
Yeah, it's super early. We're still going in the 2025 season, but I can't see myself predicting them to make the 8 next year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because if they go into full rebuild mode, they're in a serious rebuild. Like you said, they don't have a lot of young players coming through, and that's not a great sign when you're a team that isn't exactly going to keep going with the age sort of profile that they're in. But moving on to Brisbane, it sort of pains me. Like I say it all the time when coaches get beaten by what you know, but at least Collingwood had a crack. They just got it wrong. McCluggage is the key for Brisbane. We know that. He's had huge games against Gold Coast and Collingwood in the last 2 weeks and led his team to victory, but they got that wrong with Sidebottom. He just wasn't the player to go with McCluggage all night. I don't know who the player could have been, but he absolutely smashed Sidebottom throughout the night. Will Ashcroft had another huge game. Just seems like he's built for finals. Just looks like a younger Lachie Neale with the extremely quick hands in the contest. Harris Andrews did what he does. Brisbane absolutely dominated the corridor, high pressure, successful risk-taking. And once they get those handball chains going, there's not a whole lot you can do. They found one in Ty Gallop. He was the highest rated player on the ground.
I do want to mention just how many amazing father-sons they have. It feels kind of unfair.
Them, the Bulldogs, Collingwood have quite a few.
Yeah.
But he, in his 5th game, kicking 3 goals and being a huge marking threat all throughout the game. They just had too much for Collingwood in the end, and I can't wait to see them in the grand final on the Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, we talk about this probably way too often. It's probably very annoying, just the tag. But Hugh McCluggage, in the first final of this year, Geelong tagged him well, and he had 14 disposals, no impact on the game.
His lowest disposal game since either 2020 or 2021.
And he's been clearly Brisbane's best player this year. I don't think there's any doubt about that, especially just in their midfield or attack. Yeah. And then in the 2 games after that, no tag from Damien Hardwick, and McCluggage is maybe best on ground.
They had a crack with the tag, but Sidebottom was never going to really get the job on him.
Yeah, and Sidebottom isn't really going to play as much inside midfield as Hugh McCluggage is, so he's just not going to go with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm disappointed that such good coaches just don't tag the opposition's best player.
We'll jump into the McCluggage tag when we preview the grand final in a little bit. We'll go into the coaches' votes now. I'll run through mine quickly. So I gave 5 to McCluggage, 4 to Zach Bailey, who's had a big final series, 3 to Harris Andrews, 2 to Dane Zorko, and I gave 1 to Jamie Elliott.
Yeah, I had 5 to Hugh McCluggage, 4 to Harris Andrews. Thought he was just dominant. And is so important. 3 for Dane Zorko, 2 for Jamie Elliott, and 1 to Will Ashcroft, who kicked a couple of wonder goals.
Yeah. And it probably would have been goal. After we saw what got goal of the year a couple of hours ago, he definitely would have won goal of the year with that. And Jamie Elliott probably would have won mark of the year as well. I honestly wouldn't surprise. The thing is, the fact they can't, it's tough to include finals. The goals and marks in the year because it obviously happens before the grand final, but maybe they could change something like that.
Maybe.
But we'll go into previewing the grand final. So what we're going to do, Sam's got Geelong, I've got Brisbane. We're going to go through who's the most important player, who needs to step up on grand final day. Maybe the player hasn't had the greatest final series and they just really need to step up for their team to win. And what's the formula for that team to win the grand final? I'll let you start.
All right. I think Geelong's most important player, I won't talk about it for too long because I've already brought him up a lot, and that's Patrick Dangerfield. If he's on song, he will be an absolute handful for the Lions, and I'm not sure if they can game plan for him or how they would, because they don't tag. They're not I don't think they will. Obviously, they'll try to pay a little bit of attention to Patrick Dangerfield, maybe through Jared Berry if he does play. But I'm worried that if Patrick Dangerfield gets loose, he could destroy the Lions. And then who I think needs to step up, and he's been playing. Just
what I will say on the Patrick Dangerfield thing. Yeah. I think him versus Dunkley could be an absolute lovely matchup in the midfield if Dangerfield does go there, and I'll love watching that.
Yeah. Who needs to step up? This guy's been playing great, but Zach Guthrie needs to fill some very, very large shoes with Tom Stewart out.
Yeah.
Brisbane enter 50 with more pace and dynamism and creativity than maybe any other team, and looking forward to this grand final, Stewart was the key to being the cool head that positions himself. It's one of the greatest things about Tom Stewart that has made him a 4 or 5 time All-Australian already in his young career is how well he reads the play, reads the opposition moving forward, gets himself in position and seems to just take easy, uncontested marks because of how well he reads the play. Well, Zach Guthrie is going to need to do a lot of that to try to limit the danger of these Brisbane small forwards when the ball goes to ground. And then the winning formula for Geelong, I think it's a 3-pronged formula. First is going to be the triple tag from Chris Scott. We saw it in the first round of finals. We saw Atkins, Mullen, and O'Connor.
It ain't broke, don't fix it.
None of them looked at the ball once in the qualifying final. It was just, look at your man. Atkins, you're not letting Neale or whoever it is this game touch it. Mullen, you're not letting McCluggage touch it. And O'Connor, you're not letting, was it Rayner? You're not letting Rayner have an impact. And so it might be Zach Bailey if Neale's not playing or if he's not at his best. So that's what Chris Scott, one of the things that Chris Scott does so well, what makes him so brilliant is he has these players that are told to go and do their thing, be creative, guys like Ryan Myers and Bailey Smith, Dangerfield, and then he's got players who play a smart role. Then the second part of the formula, defense, along with to help Zach Guthrie to converge on aerial balls and do all they can to fill that void left by Tom Stewart. The third prong of the plan is for the Geelong attack to be creative and enter 50 unpredictably. If they send balls long too often, just predictably down the line, I think Harris Andrews will feast on them. I could see a Harris Andrews like smoky Norm Smith performance with the way that he loves those games where the opposition are just sending the ball down the line. If they can enter 50 in a more dynamic way, get the ball to ground, then the Geelong small forwards are as good as any in the league. Stengel, Myers, Manor, then Dempsey and Dangerfield will be spending time up there. It's going to be really hard for Brisbane to stop all of them if Geelong can get it to ground.
Well, I'm in love with the taggers, right? And it shocks me how coaches like Damien Hardwick, I know he's a very successful coach, but how coaches don't have a tagger or don't have a consistent tagger. I mean, Geelong have 2 or 3. Obviously, Atkins is a semi-tagger. But the 2 guys, Mullen and O'Connor, wouldn't be in their 22 at all if they weren't tagging, right? And they've got 2 big Irishmen. And all he said to them is they're not great AFL players, but they're big guys who are ready to
They both come from Gaelic football.
Play a great role and just take other players out the game. It shocks me when coaches let the other opposition's best players run around free. Like when Nick Dacos is running out with no attention, it confuses me so much. Like as a coach, I'd love to have a guy big, do your role. Like just this is your role. Just do not let this guy touch the ball. If you can take one of your players that wouldn't be in the 22 and take out the opposition's best player, I don't understand why you don't do that. Anyways, speaking of Harris Andrews, he's my most important player for Brisbane. Needs to be at his absolute best and control the air if Brisbane are to win this game. Was probably Brisbane's best player in the qualifying final and will probably need to be even better. And I agree, I think it's a smoky for Norm Smith if Brisbane get up and he has a huge game. But who needs to step up on grand final day? I'm going for the man built for finals, and you've mentioned him already, Cam Rayner. He's had an up and down final series, and bar the free kicks he shouldn't have gotten in the qualifying final against Geelong, was poor in that game. He's probably going to get the tag from O'Connor because it was really successful last time, but I highly doubt Fagan's going to park Rayner in the goal square for most of the game. When Rayner is around the ball, he needs to be that tackle-breaking bull everyone knows that he can be. Make yourself untaggable by being so powerful and quick through the stoppage. He doesn't need to have loads of touches, but usually when he gets it, he impacts quite heavily. When he's moving and he's in the open field, I don't think O'Connor's going to be able to touch him. That's just how I feel. I think it was a really successful tag last time because Rayner was in the goal square for a lot of the game, so it was quite an easy tag. I'd love to see him play a lot of midfield time, especially with how the game went last time, where it was just Geelong all through the midfield with their running power. Get Cam Rayner in there, get him moving around the ball. It's going to be really damaging throughout the game. What's the formula to win? So all season, Brisbane have been playing this high-risk attacking footy straight through the corridor. In the qualifying final, Geelong threw a ton of bodies in the corridor to clog it up and prevented Brisbane from moving the ball at all. So the key for me is Brisbane have to find another string to pull if the corridor isn't working. Like, can Morris and Gallup take contested marks on the wing and then come back through the corridor? Maybe Brisbane slow the game up a little bit to try and spread Geelong and sort of set up the wall with Harris Andrews when they can really lock teams in their forward 50. But I think Brisbane have what it takes to win if they can make it a Brisbane game. And if they don't really play in Geelong, sweating on a turnover. They love it. So they're going to be marking the corridor. And if Brisbane are giving the ball away through the corridor and coming back, they're going to give them pretty easy looks. But yeah, just don't play into Geelong's hands.
Yeah. And now we're going to do our predictions. So I think we're going to predict winner, margin, and Norm Smith.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to start us off?
Yeah.
I've got Geelong winning. I'm afraid that it could be comfortable. I said this about the prelim, that Geelong might get a comfortable win. I was correct. I'm not always correct, so I've got to mention when I am. And I think it might happen again because Geelong do such a good job of quashing your best threat, and then their weapons going the other way are just so strong. I really think this Geelong team is the best team that I've seen in a couple of years. So I'm going to go Geelong by 28. And Norm Smith, I'm going left field. I'm going Tom Atkins.
Tom Atkins for
Norm Smith. I think that is a guy built for a grand final. It doesn't matter how the game's going or, what the style of game is. He is going to be in and under, winning the ball, tackling Hugh McCluggage and Josh Dunkley and Lachie Neale all day, just doing everything he can. And I think that he could really stand out this game.
I like it. I was swinging both ways on who wins this grand final, and it was especially after Stewart went down. I think that changes the makeup of Geelong's defence entirely. And I know they got the better of Hawthorn even when Stewart wasn't playing, but I think Brisbane are a better offensive team. I'm going to have Brisbane to win this. And
to be different?
And no. I have Brisbane down here, and I think they're going to win it by 2 points. I think it's going to be a really, really close game. And my Norm Smith prediction is Josh Dunkley.
Love it.
I think similar to Atkins, he's just going to be in the guts, and I think if Dangerfield's in there, he's going to have the role. He's going to have that. And his thing is, what I like is that it's a panel that selects the Norm Smith medal. So I feel like he's going to be noticed when he's making a lot of tackles and he's doing the dirty work. I feel like he's going to pick up a lot of that interest from the guys. And if Brisbane win the game, he doesn't have to have a high disposal game, but be a high tackle game. I think he could win it.
I love it. Well, tell us in the comments below, who do you think is winning the grand final? Who's winning the Norm Smith? I want to see the predictions, because I think Geelong might be favourites here, except this is Brisbane's third grand final in a row. Something we haven't talked about is that these are two absolute powerhouses of recent times in the AFL. Both these teams, both these coaches seem to just do it and do it and do it. We were sort of saying they both look like they're going to pick up players next year.
Yeah, Kono has selected Geelong as his preferred trade destination. Rowan Marshall as well.
And Geelong also expecting to pick up, Brisbane expecting to pick up James Worpel next year as well.
No, that was Geelong. Geelong, James Worpel. Brisbane were Ridley and Oscar Allen. But they're still such a young team, Brisbane. They could go more grand finals. Yep. As in,
two Ashcrofts just ready to lead the next generation to more grand finals.
They're not an old team either.
Yeah, my comment to Aiden this year is I reckon this is the grand final next year as well. It's been a while since I felt that leading to a grand final. Like, these two will be there again next year. I reckon they'll be the two premiership favourites next year.
Well, the next time we're going to see you is after the grand final has been finished. We're going to run through our predictions at the start of the season in our first video of the season. Who we thought was going to win the grand final. Who we thought was going to be the runner-up, the Brownlow medal. We predicted the top 8 as well, so we'll go over that. And we've done our top 5 players every single round this season. We're going to add up all of the votes and come back and say our
player of the year. Yeah.
Our player of the year. Chat shit player of the
year. Oh, the Brownlow means nothing now. Nazaya Wanganeen-Malira had the greatest individual performance in living memory and got 2 votes behind Jack Viney's 24 touches.
Yeah.
In a losing performance.
Couldn't quite believe that.
The Brownlow medal now means nothing, and what it's really about is the chat chip player.
Who's going to win the chat chip medal? Nick
Dacos will finally get his award.
We have no idea who's going to win it. Could be Bont, could be Dacos. You'll find out next week. We'll see you all in the next one.